Today, I ran an 18-mile double day in the Brooks Glycerin Flex, and it completely humbled me. Few notes before we get started. Lacing this up, it feels weird on foot. The Brooks Glycerin Flex is putting some, I wouldn't say pressure, but I could feel the medial heel and arch more than normal and the lateral midfoot more than normal. Super strange. I'm sure that was by design. And the other thing is that the fit is for sure narrow. I'm glad that I went with a 10 instead of my maybe 9.5 in between sizes, and a 10 was definitely necessary. It still feels a bit narrow, which is a strange choice for what's supposed to imitate a flexible, barefoot, movable, flexible, movable movement type of shoe, capturing that audience. I think that the fit would turn a lot of people in that audience off immediately, but it's way too early to judge. It feels comfortable on foot otherwise, and a little firmer than I was expecting stepping into it. And I didn't do a ton of research on this, but it feels very secure on my foot now that I'm just bopping around out here and yapping to you all. It does feel kind of ready to run and easy to get laced correctly. So let's go find out if that's the case.
Flex when you're next at your desk. Exercise often. Flex, do your best, that's the rest. Leave them exhausted. Flex, till your brain drips. Excretions are extra deadly. Flex, hit the track with extreme depletion, extra steady. Flex, 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 flex.
About a mile and a half into my first run in the Brooks Glycerin Flex, and in any Brooks shoe, and so far, a few things that I've noticed are this has a much larger bounce than I was expecting it to have. Now, I didn't actually look at a lot of the specs right before coming out here. I looked at it about a month ago when this was announced at TRE. But we're gonna break that down in the studio anyways. So I don't actually know what the foam is in this. I know it's the DNA tuned, of course, and I believe that's nitrogen infused EVA, but I literally don't know, so I don't want to comment on it at this time. But with that in the back of my head thinking it's that, I was not expecting this to be very bouncy at all. And compared to a lot of what I run in, probably not on that level of bounce, but I was pleasantly surprised. Second observation is I seem, at least it feels like, I am landing on my heel a bit more, or at least the midfoot a bit more than I normally would, which is the opposite of what I would expect in a shoe like this. And I could be totally wrong. We're gonna have to look at the footage. But yeah, it's a nice feeling. Very cushioned for me. Seems to be very protective immediately out of the gate. And I do kind of feel my left foot more than my right getting worked a little bit. Just a little bit along the lateral arch area into maybe my pinky toe, maybe slightly. Not a huge amount. We'll track that throughout the run to see if that changes. The third thing, or whatever number thing that I noticed, was the flexi groove things seem to grip the snow a little better than like any other shoe. And it's not the rubber, so it's not like outright grip or traction that's doing the load there, but where the snow is sufficiently deep to allow some sink in, it feels a little like the grooves are grabbing that snow, pinching it, and using it as a lever to push off the ground from, which is nifty. I'll have more thoughts soon. I don't want to give my feelings on this quite yet, because it's so early into the run. The entire left leg of my body, my left leg, is in a lot of pain right now, and it's been like that for a couple of days. Honestly, ever since I fell down in the Adios Pro 4, it's been hurting, but I think it'll be fine. It'll work its way out of me eventually. I don't want to let it rip right now because I don't want to hurt myself any more than I already am, but I have a distinct feeling that these would feel great at high speed, like track session high speed, like strides high speed, because they just conform to my feet really well. And if I cranked the laces, I know how secure they'd be, because the laces are loose right now and they're secure. They're like proper secure. And yeah, if I just like cranked it real good, did a couple 100-meter repeats, I think these would feel really nice. They wouldn't be like the fastest thing in the world, but they would feel very safe to run very quickly in without worrying about how energetic the foam is, even though it's more energetic than I thought it would be. I'm starting to like this. This combination of firm but flexible is definitely peculiar, and I think probably a really good choice ultimately, but yeah, something that has the like foam density of a traditional shoe, but then bends and like sort of just conforms to your foot really nicely, is yeah, sort of refreshing, sort of definitely different. This definitely feels different. I wouldn't say it's like boom in your face. Like this isn't gonna, I don't think this is gonna blow anybody away or surprise anybody. I think that Brooks has done a good and accurate marketing campaign and explained really well what they were trying to do with this, or at least whatever reached me in the marketing terms, and that's just to have like a more flexible daily option that moves with your foot. And that's really what's happening right now. I can feel it. And the foam is nice. It's not a bouncy foam. It's like a surprisingly bouncy EVA, like a shockingly bouncy EVA feeling to me. I don't actually know if that's what the nitrogen and foam infused DNA tuned actually is, because I forgot. But we're gonna cover that, like I said, we're gonna cover that back in the studio. Alright, I got a really short stride at what looked like down to 6:45 pace, and this felt even floatier and more fluid at that pace than it does at like high 8s, low 9s. I've been struggling with my left leg today. It was just sore. and maybe slightly tweaked, but yeah, just where I fell down, that's the epicenter of the pain, and then sort of all around it also is in pain. But that singular fast-paced stride felt great. One thing I will say is this does not feel the most protective for going down steep hills. I just had a couple really jarring heel strikes. It did not feel great. I haven't run aggressively fast uphill, but for the hills that I've done so far, going up feels fine. Going down, Alright, 10 miles, 8:47 pace. A couple things. As the run went on, these felt firmer and firmer, and like they might be best suited for shorter runs. Or my legs are just that beat up right now, and it really could be either. I was feeling kind of similar yesterday in a completely different pair of shoes. I don't even remember what I ran in yesterday. And yeah, so I don't really know, but I do have a sneaking suspicion that the shoes are contributing to that feeling, where it just felt firm towards the end and like I was slamming into the ground really hard. And maybe I just need another whack at these on fresh legs. I do think I'm going to double in them today. I'm going to probably take them on a treadmill and see how it feels on there, because firmer shoes tend to do really well for me on a treadmill, and these feel firm. Another little note, I think I could have tied the forefoot a little tighter. I think the next time that I do run in these, probably this afternoon, to complete my 20-mile double, we'll see, is that the left foot particularly, which is my slightly smaller foot, was having a little rubbing along the like big toe, and yeah, in the forefoot up there, slightly, like not much more than any new shoe would do, but maybe a little more. So I think that if I had tightened that slightly, it would fit a little different, and maybe it wouldn't give me such a slamming sensation late in the run. Who's to say? Not every shoe is for long running. Like, that's something that I've learned throughout doing these reviews, and I mean, that sounds like super obvious, but not every shoe is designed for that, and I tend to go somewhat long compared to the average population of runners. I mean, it depends on who the average population of runners is. If it's like amongst people that watch this channel, I'm probably just slightly above the average in terms of mileage. And then if you compare the average population of the world, I'm pretty high mileage. So like taking these for 10 might not really be what Brooks intended, but 10 is not that long for me. So it's like, I've learned today, at least, that these are not, I'm not going to do a long run test in them. Probably not going to go over 10 in them again, which does definitely limit their use case. But I will probably revisit at least another 10 in them on fresher legs, because I really like the way they feel. Like, they're very comfortable, and standing here, they're very comfortable on my feet. Like, these, once they're retired from their mileage journey, these are going to be the next, like, house shoe / going out around town shoe. Instantly, I know that. The narrowness wasn't such an issue for me on the run once I got going, other than if you count, like, the slight friction that I'm getting on my forefoot. I think that's the garbage, that the garbage collector is going to collect my garbage. Oh my god, hold on. It is not garbage day, it's Wednesday. I have no idea what's going on. Garbage day is Friday. Okay, with that garbage interlude over, back to the studio. And we're back in the studio with the Brooks Glycerin Flex, and look at it, it flexes. Let's check it out. Whoa, look at it bend. It's not actually so bendy this way, which is good because that's the way that you're already inclined to pronate, but it is flexible this way so that as you're pronating in, it allows you to pronate this way, but not in with the heel. So I don't know. That's probably why they made it. That's probably part of it, at least. But yeah, it's super flexible. So much to talk about here. I honestly had a pretty crazy day of running in this shoe. It was the first run in the morning was 10. The second run in the afternoon was supposed to be 10, but I'll tell you about that in a second. So we're first going to start with the specs and materials. All right, so starting with the upper, we have this engineered flat knit is what I believe it's called. There is a rubbery Brooks overlay, which they have been a big fan of lately. I actually, this is not a material, but color, is color a material? I like the color of this shoe. It's not what I was going to get, but I got this at a store. I probably would have gone with the green looking, the white and green looking guy if I had had my option. But now that I have this in hand, this is a very classy blue. It's almost like a Brooks Brothers suit, but this is a shoe company, also named Brooks. This is also my first Brooks shoe ever. I've never run in a Brooks shoe before. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. So it was definitely an experience all around for me to get it in blue and for it to be a Brooks shoe. So the material is definitely very premium. It has on the medial side these like ribbed, yeah, I don't know. It's just a nice tactile sensation. I don't know if it contributes to the on-foot comfort, but I'd heard from the grapevine of running shoe enthusiasts and all of the reviews that I watch that Brooks has amazing uppers, and yeah, for sure, this does not disappoint at all. I was a big fan of the way this fit on foot. Although I will say I do think it runs a little narrow in the forefoot. I did get this in a 10. I'm in between a 9.5 and a 10, and I actually did try on a 9.5 in store, and that was too narrow for me. But this is fine in a 10. It's just I think it runs slightly narrow. But no issues with it for sure. Nothing like severe. The laces I was pretty skeptical of because they're big, like chonky laces. They're thick tube style laces, and I've never actually owned a running shoe with tube style laces because it's 2026. But they're fine, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, like I didn't notice them. I'm sure that they're heavier than flat laces. The tongue was surprisingly minimal. But did not bother me at all. I mean, most of the shoes that I run in have really very minimal tongues. The heel padding is so comfortable. It's like, so it's sort of the same style as the Mega Blast, where it has this like big bumper pad that extends into the heel collar. Like the heel collar extends inward onto your foot, and then like secures you with a very large pillow. And this pull tab, man, I'm probably going to break this eventually because it's really fun to stretch. So that's all really good. That's all I have to say about the upper and the materials and whatever there. The midsole is DNA tuned. It is 36 in the heel, 30 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. The weight is something that we have to talk about right now. It was 287 grams on one of the feet, I forget which, and 277 grams on the other foot. And that's a lot of weight, and that's a big weight disparity. And I weighed it like 4 times, and those are the numbers I kept getting. So it was in their sample size, they were citing it's around 258 grams. I think that's in a size 9. This is size 10. That's a appropriate scale up, I think, to size 10, but that's heavy. It did not feel that heavy on foot. So that's the good news here. But this is heavier than the Mag Max, like on the low end of the measurement. So 277 grams. The Mag Max was 273 grams when I just weighed it. The Mag Max is like 3 times the size of this shoe. Look at this like comedic comparison in size of these shoes. And yet the Brooks Glycerin Flex is heavier than it. Didn't expect it. The Mag Max feels heavier on foot. So there's that. So that's The specs, oh, and also there's a pretty decent chunk of rubber here, and that's probably where you're getting a lot of the weight, is just the amount of glue and rubber that they need to adhere the thickness of this rubber to the shoe. And there's also rubber that extends over some of the grooves in the shoe, and so it probably needs to be somewhat thick in order to cover that. Yeah, so there's a lot of rubber on this shoe, and that's probably a contributing factor to the weight. That's all I got on specs. That was probably blending some categories together as I typically do, but let's go into the fit. And I definitely stepped on the toes of this category in the previous discussion, but fit was a little narrow, like I said, but it was really, really comfortable on foot. I think this fits incredibly well, and like, I think that it fits well both for relaxed paces, and I think you could really let rip in this, and that time will tell. I did one stride in this to test it out, and I'll get to that in the ride section, but I think that, yeah, this is one of the best fitting shoes that I've run in recently, and it's not, I mean, it comes at the expense of the weight. It's very heavy for the amount of stack you're getting, but I think that that's by design, and like step-in comfort was really nice. There is a weird like feeling of sort of right through here. It feels like the foam is coming up a little bit into my lateral like arch area where the arch ends at the outside of your foot, right on the midfoot, right in this chunk right here. And then sort of at the medial heel back here, if I'm remembering this correctly. I talked about this in the On the Run segment. That totally went away when I was running in it, but when I was just standing there, those areas felt pronounced, not in a bad way, not in like a good way, just in that I noticed it way. So that's all I have for the fit. Let's go on to everybody's favorite, and really the only important segment, the ride. So the ride on this was quite the experience. And at the beginning of this video, I teased the fact that this was a challenge for me today, and that I was sort of humbled by this shoe, and I was. The first run of the day, I was experiencing a lot of pain on my left leg. That I think is completely, I mean, I know that's completely unrelated to this shoe. It's because I fell down a few weeks ago, and I'm still recovering from that. It was a pretty nasty fall. And like my leg has just been, my whole left leg from my hip to the like top inner quad has been in pain, and it's sort of been traveling around my body, which is good, a good sign. You know, if it's traveling around, it's not one really damaged thing, and it'll probably work itself out of the system eventually. But so my first run of the day was hard. It was pretty hard, and it was not fast. It was slow, in fact, and I just felt fatigued and tired. And by the end of the run, the shoe wasn't feeling exactly the way that I wanted it to, and I'll come to that shortly. But overall, like, that was really, really hard. The second run of the day I did on a treadmill, and I was so exhausted for that. And I think I might have just been dehydrated because I'm so used to the weather outside being very cold and not sweating a ton. And so I was probably just like completely lacking liquid in my system, and that's on me. But what I did notice is that my legs were exhausted during this. Like and I'm talking my lower legs, stuff that hasn't been worked in ages, it was getting worked today. And that is the shoe. I think it's the fact that my calves were feeling it during the run, mostly on the second run, but during the first one too. That's down to this shoe. And I think that that is both a good thing and a bad thing. I think that this is a shoe that will improve your running genuinely. If you're looking to become a stronger athlete, I think that this will actually help you develop muscles where you're currently probably underusing them, like your soleus, which is like the most important running muscle, just where you keep a lot of load and are able to explode the most reliably and like, yeah, carry you through your stride. I mean, your lower legs are what you run on for the most part. So that was a reality check for me, that I probably have been running in too many rigid, super foamed, big old, crazy shoes. And this was a more normal shoe than I was expecting. Now, that doesn't mean that it was without any bounce. Actually, one of the first things in the first 2 miles of the run that I was really excited about is that when I landed midfoot in this, and like I could kind of tell it was pretty deliberately midfoot. I was getting way more bounce than I ever expected out of this because DNA tuned being a nitrogen infused EVA, like that's not actually very exciting in 2026. That's actually not exciting in 2026. And the reason I was excited for the shoe had nothing to do with the foam. It had to do with the fact that I, once upon a time, drank the Born to Run Kool-Aid and lived as a barefoot runner in high school for a little bit. And I was like, oh, something that will flex with my natural muscles. Let me go train my strength and my feet so that I become better runner now. And so I had primitive brain going when I was looking at picking the shoe up to test it. And for sure, I mean, yeah, it does that to some degree. This is not a minimalist shoe, but I think that there's something that the barefoot community could find useful about this. It's the fact that a large company is admitting, I mean, also trying to capitalize on, but admitting that there is a reason to create a more flexible shoe, right? I think that's progress. I'm seeing, I don't know if any barefoot people are going to actually be watching this channel because I really don't do that type of review very often. But if you are interested in more of those type of reviews, I am looking at picking up a pair of Ultras later this year when a specific pair comes out. But I digress. This is not a barefoot shoe. It's a 36 in the heel, 30 in the forefoot, and minimalists would be appalled that I'm even comparing this to that. But I do think that the fact that they're incorporating flexibility into a very new and exciting running shoe that has some hype behind it is a good sign. I think that that's progress, and all of the brands that I've been paying attention to, Brooks included, have sort of been lowering their drops. Like Nike being the one holdout and Adidas not doing anything. They're not changing anything with drop, but both Brooks and Puma specifically have been lowering their drops from 10 to 8, and then some of Brooks shoes from 8 to 6. And so that's just a trend that I'm noticing in the market. I don't know if that's true across all brands. I don't think that's true of Saucony. So maybe it really is just a couple brands that are doing it, but I'm hoping to see that sort of continue to trickle down throughout the market. So yeah, the fact that today I had such a hard time with this shoe tells me a couple things about myself, that I have definitely fallen into the trap of only running in one type of shoe. Now, I obviously have more than one type of shoe here, but the typical shoe that I'm running in is between 6 and 8 millimeter drop. It's probably close to 40 millimeters of stack height, if not over it, and it has a super foam in it. That's just what I mostly run in, and probably even half the time a plate, right? Some of the highest mileage shoes that I have don't have a plate in it because I train in them all the time. But I'm not training in anything flexible like this, and I think that there is a place for that in our workflow as runners. Like if we want to train to get stronger and to get better, a shoe like this is a tool for that. Now, I didn't enjoy this as much as I wanted to, but I was suffering today. So it's not easy to say that it was the shoe, and it's not easy to say it wasn't the shoe. I just was undernourished, underhydrated, and did not have a good day of running, nor did I have a good day otherwise. So, sometimes life factors come into influence the perception that I might have of a shoe, and this is just going to require more testing. Just a fact of this shoe as it relates to me. Some things that I could see it being useful for me. Run club, because typically I'm running with a group that 9-minute pace, and it's social, we're hanging out, we're chatting, it's not taken very seriously, and that would be a good way to add some passive difficulty to run club. Then also going for recovery runs. obviously that doesn't sound like a great way to recover, but if I'm rocking a 10-minute pace on a recovery run, like a proper true recovery run, that would introduce a new stimulus into that style of run and work a different muscle, right? So and also just any social runs. And what I really am excited about this shoe is to test it in a workout setting. So probably like 400s, maybe even just like strides or 100 repeats, like really fast 100s. Because I think that the way this fits my foot so well will make it not clunky, even though it's heavier. It really didn't feel that heavy on foot, but upon reflection, like, makes a lot of sense why I was dragging today, like why I was feeling so slow, why everything felt so hard. But maybe it's just not, maybe it's not the weight, maybe it's that my calves are underdeveloped. I don't know. I am rambling at this point about my day in this shoe because honestly, like, it gives you a lot to think about when you have an experience like this. The last thing that I could compare it to is the Solomon Aeroblaze. And I ended up not liking the Aeroblaze like at all. And I think it was really bad at cushioning. It's like not impact protective enough for me. And it's much lower than the Glycerin Flex, but it was where they're similar. It felt like this is of another era. And even though this is like supercritical TPU, I think, I'm not exactly sure what foam's in this, but it felt really harsh and not protective underfoot. And not to compare the Glycerin Flex to a shoe I didn't like, but in the same way, this didn't feel like propulsive to run in. It didn't feel assistive to run in. It didn't feel like I was really getting much from the shoe. If anything, it was that the shoe was asking me to work harder. And I think that's kind of the point though, right? And so it's like, what is the point of the footwear that we're wearing to train in? Why do we wear the shoes that we wear? And that's a really good open question for the community, where it's like, there's one perspective where it's like, well, if you wear the super max cushion shoes that have a lot of energy return, you're going to be more likely to get out for some miles, and you're going to enjoy your run more, and you're going to be able to put more miles on, right? That's all valid and true. But then if you try to run barefoot, or if you try, like, because I did, when I was on the treadmill, I finished a run with a half-mile barefoot the other day, and that was hard too. And it's like, that didn't used to be really all that different for me on a treadmill. It used to be very similar to wearing shoes. And like, then like a run like this today, where this was harder than wearing a lot of the other shoes that I would typically run in, that cannot be good. Like, I can't bring myself to understand that as a good thing, that running in a certain shoe that's just not quite as propulsive as the other ones and has a slightly different like flexibility level could bring you to having, you know, a challenging run. And it could all be that I'm kind of in shambles right now. My body hurts, and it is an 18-mile double. And even on my 20-mile doubles, when I feel like I've crushed it, at the end of the day, I do feel very tired from those. So it's not any different from any other double day. It's that the shoe did feel like it was challenging me in a way, right? That's what I'm really breaking down here, and why I'm spending so much time on this topic. It's like, there's a philosophical parting of the, like, a departure point from other shoes that this shoe has, where it's like, actually, no, running should be hard. And if you're training for something, training for a race, you should strengthen your feet and lower legs. And that's part of the experience of being a runner. And I cannot disagree with that. And it actually has me inspired to get back to running barefoot a little bit sometimes. Like, at the beginning of last summer, I did barefoot strides a few times, and I was like, oh, I like doing barefoot strides. Yeah, I stopped doing that immediately, because why would I do that? Like, that's hard. I need to get back to doing that, because that's part of what develops a strong runner, is having, right, good mechanics. If you run barefoot at a high speed, you're going to develop high level quality speed mechanics. better than if you are wearing a ridiculously geometried, super foamed, triple plated shoe, right? It's just going to be more natural to run. And so you'll find a more natural rhythm with your strides. And then that can inform your running form when you wear the super shoes later on. So yeah, this was a really interesting day in running, and it's a very thought-provoking shoe. I'm gonna get more miles on it because I can't leave it at that. I'm just too curious now to see what happens. So yeah, I appreciate all of your attention. This has been a crazy, exhausting, wonderful, really hard day. And with that, thank you, and stay in motion.
Get up, no, get moving.
Molly is a ritter, I'm the notion. Molly's trying to get to stay in motion. Grunt, and now you're working wicked fast. They hardly urge you on top. Happy stop, let's